Welcome to the Untold Science Women in STEM podcast series. This series is an initiative to foster gender inclusivity in science, regionally and worldwide. It's to bring inspiring talks and conversations with pioneering women who have significantly contributed to the world of science. Today, I'm excited to welcome Dr. Pascale Anglade, a dynamic physician executive with a wealth of clinical and operational experience spanning 3 continents, currently serving as the medical director of Office of Professional Staff and consultant in gastroenterology and hepatology at the Cleveland Clinic Abu Dhabi. Pascale is not only a leader in her field, but also a passionate advocate for gender equity in healthcare. Her influential work in research and speakership, focusing on gender equity, continues to push boundaries and spark vital conversations in medical community. Welcome, Pascale, and thank you for joining us on the Untold Science Women in STEM.
Thank you so much, Inas, and I'm really honored to be here with you today.
I would like to begin with your personal journey. Many women in medicine have powerful and inspiring stories. What inspired you to pursue a career in medicine, and what continues to fuel your passion for your work today?
If I'm entirely honest, I don't think I could have seen myself doing anything else. Since I was a little kid, I used to put, little plasters, Band-Aids on my sister and on my friends. I've always wanted to be a healer. I've always wanted to take care of people. So this is something that to me came extremely naturally. I was inspired growing up by people I knew who also were physicians. My pediatrician was a powerful, wonderful woman, and other people around me that I got to meet when I was a child and then later on in high school and in college. And I found myself just being inspired by so many different people. To me, this was a very natural choice to go into medicine.
Did your parent encourage you?
So my parents encouraged me to do whatever I wanted. I think they were and I'll tell you, my mom and my dad were both big feminists. They wanted their daughter, they only had daughters. They wanted the daughters to be whatever they wanted. I think they were a bit concerned about how all-consuming a career in medicine may be. And although they were very encouraging, they always told me, like when you make your choices, realize what you may have to sacrifice to get to that point. And when I decided to go into a very interventional specialty that was very male-dominated, they said, go ahead, do what you want to do, go lead with your heart, follow your heart, but realize that some sacrifices may need to be made along the way. So they were realists. They were extremely encouraging, but also pretty realistic about the path that medicine may entail for women in medicine.
Yeah, to be honest, I was impressed to see a female physician doing gastroenterology. So we are so proud to see you in that domain.
So it is still a male-dominated field, but women are making their mark in my subspecialty, and I'm very proud to see this.
I mean, if I knew about you before I started, I would do my endoscopy and colonoscopy with you. But now this is good to know. We still can search.
Absolutely.
How do you view your role in mentoring and guiding the next generation of women in healthcare? And do you believe mentoring is needed in this field?
So I think I see this as a major responsibility of any person who has gone through this process, right? So to me, I am now, I'd like to think of myself as mid-career still, but perhaps I'm towards the later end of the career. So I've been out of medical school for about 25 years. And to me, there is a great sense of responsibility to shepherd the new generation of people, of physicians that are following us. So be it, we need to start as early as high school and then further into undergraduate medical school and then further on in training. So I think this is definitely a responsibility that I hold very near and dear to my heart. But beyond mentoring, I am now in a position where I can actually help sponsor younger generation of early career physicians as well. So not only being there as a mentor, but also making sure that if I'm able to open doors for them in terms of opportunities in terms of career promotion and advancement, right? So I think I'm there as a mentor, but I'm also there as a sponsor for a lot of very talented women we have in the workforce. That is one of the things that I think keeps me going, and one of the major responsibilities I see as part of what I do.
This is good to hear. When you say sponsorship, is this something you meant for the workforce, or are you also talking about some type of internship, shadowing?
So by sponsorship, I mean opening doors, right? Sponsorship is more giving opportunities to others when they're not even in the room, right? To say, hey, we have this talented person that's interested in this particular topic, this particular research, this particular experiment. How can we incorporate him or her in that, right? And when I say mentoring and sponsorship, I mentor male physicians as well, non-physicians, and women as well. So I think we have to make sure that we mentor broadly as well, and then that we sponsor. So again, sponsor is more opening doors, making the right connections for them with the right people and the right opportunities. And mentoring is more shepherding them along and sort of guiding their journey. So I see this as really two different tasks, both of which are needed, but oftentimes it is said that women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. So I try to balance that by doing both.
I like when you say that it's a both-way mentoring and sponsoring. Moving to the current status of women in healthcare, although women make up almost half of the global population, women still make up less than a third of the world's researchers. From your own experience, are you seeing this different trend in healthcare? And how do you see the current status of women in medicine?
So I'm going to start with a disclaimer and tell you, Inaz, that I am an eternal optimist. And I think one has to be to be able to thrive and to be able to continue. Sometimes you just have to be optimistic, right? So how do I see women in healthcare? So women make up the majority of healthcare workers. Right? If you look globally, it's 80% of the healthcare workforce is women. So, and you see this in hospitals, right? You come, we have a lot of people here that provide care from at all sorts of different levels and all sorts of different functions. So healthcare is mostly held together by women workers. Now, what you're saying is what happens when you rise up in the ranks in terms of leadership? This is where things tend to thin out. And that's the challenge we still face today. Right? When you look at the number of women that have risen in academic medicine to either chair the department position, certainly in the C-suite, it's still a challenge on boards, right? It's still a challenge. So again, in a place in an industry like healthcare that is so dominated by women, although I'm an optimist and I think it is slowly improving, it is still, disheartening to see how few women are able to rise up to the top of their their field, being research, being academia, being even administrative parts of the hospital. So it is still, it's a work in progress, but I believe in incremental progress. I think when I was younger, I was looking for big leaps, and now I've come to appreciate incremental progress as a way forward. And I will always welcome big leaps, but I will never discount incremental progress.
No, I agree with you. Step by step might be more sustainable approach. For you personally, what kind of challenges have you encountered as a woman leader in healthcare, and how did you overcome them?
So I've been very, very fortunate, I think, through my journey in medicine, to have found people men and women, who have been fantastic role model and fantastic supporters of my career. So I have to give credit where credit is due. Since medical school, residency, fellowship, and beyond, I have been fortunate enough to have people around that encouraged me to continue and to get past some of the challenges that one faces when you go through a very, very long training, and not only long, but challenging. So, and I have to give credit to the people around me in my personal life as well, who have allowed me to go out there and be busy and understand the demands of my job, and have been able to help me with the rest of my personal life that still needs to happen, right? It still needs to be managed. So I have been very lucky to have both professional support and personal support. I think, like most women that are in medicine, certainly in my subspecialty, you face a certain number of bias. I think it's, nobody, I think, sometimes expects you to look like you do, to speak your mind like you do. So yes, I think these still happen today, but I'm hoping it's less and less. And that when somebody like yourself comes to the gastroenterologist, you're not surprised to see a woman. You're not shocked to see a woman as the physician and as the person who is technically going to do your procedure. And I think these are biases that I think in studies have shown that are lessening over time, where patients used to think that men were just better technically, right? Better at technical things. Now we see research has shown that patients no longer think like that. So I think, again, I'm the eternal optimist. I think we're progressing. We're going in the right direction.
I hope you will keep optimistic during your journey, and you can shine on other people and they can reflect on your own stories and be inspired. Talking about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Research shows that diverse teams are more innovative and produce more impactful research. If you can share examples of how diverse teams have enhanced the work environment, this would be great.
So I'm privileged to work here at Cleveland Clinic Abu Dhabi, which is one of the most diverse settings that one could imagine. We have people that come together to work here from so many different countries, speak so many different languages, and more importantly, have trained differently. So I'll just give you a little bit I'll take a step back perhaps to explain the difference. So in the US, where I practiced in the past, everyone that comes to the US as a physician has to retrain in the US. You have to do some kind of training. And so you get into sort of a very homogeneous medical culture. Here, it's not the case in the UAE. You could come from India, you can come from the Philippines, you can come from Germany, you can come from Australia. And we take your training into consideration, and we privilege you to go ahead and take care of the patients here. And we ask you to come together as a team with people from different countries with trainings that's not exactly like yours. And we want you to come together as a team. And this is the beauty of this place, is that we come together as teams and we learn from each other. And I will tell you that, I have learned from my colleagues who have trained in Japan, because they do something differently that in the end turns out to be actually better than how I was trained, right? So to me, this is where diversity makes a difference. If you come at it with a very open mind and say, listen, I am willing to hear, willing to learn from somebody who is different, we always, in that setting, provide better care for our patients, always. So I think diversity is it's really what makes us extremely special in this place. And that's what makes us, I believe, stronger in terms of actual patient care. And again, it's diversity of, where people, the background, the diversity of training. Obviously, gender diversity is always important. And this is, in my non-clinical role, this is something that I look at. And I think you'll touch perhaps upon this as we talk about how do you put together policies later on. But you always keep a gender lens in everything you do, right? In every committee that I chair, everything that I'm involved in, I'm like, do we have women on this team? Do we have enough of a wide point of view? Do we have enough points of views? Are we able to check each other's biases and make sure that I look for other people's blind spots, who then look for my blind spots as well, right? So that's how diverse teams make better decisions. And in the end, our number one role is to take care of people, to take care of our patients. And this is how we make the better decisions for them or with them.
I like this, that people should always focus on let's say, the mission of the place. And it's like what you mentioned, that it's to take care of the patient. But also I like the idea that regardless of the gender, you are giving equal opportunity of orientation and the training. So they all receive sort of the same training, and then they might have the same knowledge, which they will act upon. Do you think cultural and regional differences impact women's participations in this particular field?
I think, as you said in the introduction, I've been privileged to practice on 3 continents. I think you have to be culturally conscious of where you are. And I think it always does impact participation of women in the workforce and the ability for them to rise in leadership. Now, again, we're both privileged and asked both you and I to sit in a country that has made women's participation a priority in terms of women in the government, in terms of the policies that are put in place, some of the most generous family policies, family-friendly policies in this country in terms of what's available. So to me, it really does make a difference where you are. I'll tell you, I've learned a lot coming here and working in the UAE for the last 10 years, learning a new culture, learning about a new religion. And I think you have to always sort of apply locally and with cultural sensitivity, some of the lessons that you carry. I'll give you an example. When I came here, you mentioned I'm a gastroenterologist. When I came here, one of the biggest concerns that we had in my department was the number of no-shows. A no-show is when a patient books a procedure and then doesn't come, right? Which is a missed opportunity to provide care, obviously, but it's also costly to the hospital. We have an operating room that's not being used. We have idle staff. So it was just problematic all around. So we went back and studied and said, okay, let's ask patients who didn't come why they didn't come. Let's ask them. So we did a study that was led by one of our nurses, who then called every patient who didn't show over a period of 6 months and said, why did you not come? We asked all the patients, men, women, we asked everyone. And for men, it was usually, oh, it was inconvenient. I had trouble with the car. I mean, there was it was inconvenience with the appointment. For women, it was embarrassment. They were concerned about being embarrassed because, as you know, as gastroenterologists, we take care of some parts of your body that are a little bit more private, perhaps more sensitive, and women were embarrassed to come in. So we took that data and said, okay, well, if our patients are not coming because they're embarrassed, we're missing out on diagnosing them properly, treating them properly. We may delay diagnosis of bad things like cancer, right? Maybe delayed. So we really need to fix this in a culturally sensitive manner. So how are we going to do this, right? If our women tell us they're embarrassed because they don't want to be exposed, so let's go ahead and put in place policies that will let them get their procedures in a way where they're completely comfortable. And this is how we came up with the concept of for women by women care, which is basically a team of female providers, both the gastroenterologists, the anesthesiologists, the nurses, the tech, everyone comes together. We're all women. And we not only make sure that the patient is comfortable in that environment, but we've also put in some policies which are pretty basic, covering patients properly when they're wheeled from one room to another, making sure that they have little things like shorts, right, under the gown. You know how exposed and vulnerable you can feel just with the hospital gown. So we've added things to make them feel more comfortable as well. And it's been a resounding success. We've dropped the no-show rate, which was as high as 30% to less than 10%. And we've been able to provide great care in a culturally sensitive manner. So to me, these are the things that you do when you start thinking about the culture and the region that you're in. This may not have been an initiative I would have come up with in the US, but here it allowed us to, again, provide care and good care and better care for our patients. And I think in healthcare, when you talk about mission, I think we're one of the industries where we're blessed. Our mission is always so clear. There's never a deviation. Our mission is always to take the best care we can of our patients. It's so clear. It's crisp. There's no deviation from that. So I find that working in healthcare in that sense, it's easier because you can never forget that mission. You can never, ever forget it.
It's really impressive how you try to find solutions and to include it in the policy to make sure that your patients are being taken care and make consideration for their choices. What about the strategy for change? Are you aware of any strategies or initiatives that is important to increase women's contribution to medicine?
Yeah, I think there are many different strategies that one has to put in place. So it depends on what level you're at, right? If you are talking about institutionally here within where I work, we need to make sure that the policies are in place so that we're able to integrate women into our workforce in a way where they want to stay in the workforce. So we have those policies in place always with the gender lens. I've talked about family-friendly policies, right? I've talked about enabling women to adjust their schedules depending on where they are in their life, right? Coming back from maternity leave, or where we on-ramp the on-ramp back from maternity needs to be managed, because it's a difficult time, and it's a time where we tend to lose people, where they decide they're not going to come back into the workforce. So we need to be able to offer women a way to really integrate work and life, right? And I know we talk a lot about work-life balance. I like the term maybe work-life integration a little bit better, but it's because that needs change over time. And I think this is where our policies need to be flexible. So that's at an institutional level. Now, we also need to look at our own biases, right? In the way that we see women in the workforce. And that's true everywhere, in healthcare or everywhere, right? Where we have to check our own biases constantly to say, okay, we have this leadership position. We would have offered it to Inas, but Inas just had a baby. So is that okay? Should we even ask? She's already probably quite tired and quite busy. So are we really going to offer? So checking that bias to say, listen, you know what? Only Inas can make that decision. And so go ahead, if she's qualified, we're going to offer, and we're going to check our maternity bias and just say we're just check and know that that's a bias that we carry. And there's so many different biases that are mostly, to be fair, unconscious, that we carry. The whole concept of one that comes back a lot is affinity bias, right? Sponsoring or helping people that kind of look like you, right? Because these are the people you know and that you feel comfortable with. And this is why it's important to say, no, if you're a man, and because men tend to be in leadership position, this affinity bias means that they tend to mentor, sponsor other men, which then brings more men into leadership position and perhaps discounts very qualified women. So again, checking those biases at a personal level, working on the policies at institutional level, I think are ways that we can counteract some of those challenges that we have, and help women continue to rise up in leadership in healthcare.
Thank you for your answer. I would just like to look ahead and ask you about your advice that you would give young women aspiring to enter STEM fields in general and medicine in particular.
I would say definitely go for it. It's the most rewarding, I think, to me, the most rewarding career that I could have ever chosen. So I would encourage them, but also tell them that they need to have a board of advisors in their lives, in their professional and personal life, that is going to support them. This is not a one-person sport. It takes a village to help you get through this, right? So look at your personal life, look who's there to support you. Make sure that you're surrounded by people who understand the demands of your job and are willing to step in. Right? Society still expects women to do a lot of the work at home, to be the default parent, to be the default caretaker for elderly parents, right? It still falls on women. So if you have to do all this, plus you have a demanding job, plus you're trying to rise up in leadership, all these things are challenging when you put it together. So have the backup and have people that will help you and help you manage that. I didn't get to where I am by myself. I have loads of people who have helped me manage when my kids were sick. I have a supportive husband. I have other members of my family, friends. It's taken a lot of people to help get to where you are. So I would say, don't discount that. Continue to nurture those relationships, because they will carry you through life. So that would be my first advice. Make sure you're surrounded by the right people. Absolutely. That's probably my number 1, 2, and 3 advice. And then I would say follow your heart, in that if you choose, certainly in medicine, there's some subspecialties where you will be the only woman. You'll be alone. You'll be training alone. It's hard, but it's getting better over time. And most specialties are now getting more and more women. So don't get discouraged by the current state of affairs. Know that it's going to improve, and choose something that really sort of makes your heart beat a little faster. Choose a specialty where you really want to practice. And I'll give you an example. When I was in training, there were very few women who trained in gastroenterology, very few. Here now we've started the fellowship program at Cleveland Clinic in Abu Dhabi. This is our second year. We have 4 fellows, and so 4 fully trained internal medicine doctor who have decided to subspecialize in gastroenterology. We have 4, and we pick the best and the smartest of the lot that applies. And the 4 that we currently have are women. We have 4 women that we're training. To me, this gives me hope for the future. It tells me, you know what, if we let them compete, they're extremely good. And we need these women and these doctors in the workforce, especially in a place like in the UAE and in the region, where having a woman in this particular subspecialty makes such a difference to patients. So really, I'm extremely proud of our fellowship program.
I think I like it when you say that we have to remind ourselves that things are going to be better and better over time. But I also liked when you say that we have to get the advice from the right people, which makes me think that sometimes you have also to get the advice from diverse people. Don't just go to your friends. Challenge yourself to hear something that maybe will take you out of your comfort zone. Yani I remember, because I was like a perfectionist when I was a PhD student. My supervisor came one day where I was planning an experiment in my head. And he was like, Inas, stop planning, just do it. Go ahead. When you start, you will know where you will, what your capabilities are. So I really appreciate your view on this. I think your perspective, let's say, in the healthcare industry is really important and inspiring. Yani, I never know that Cleveland Clinic will have this kind of research question, like why they did not show. It's very comfortable to hear that, no, people care and they do work, but it's just that we don't know about it. And it makes people even feel more safe, female, let's say, that, my application might be in perspective, because I see lots of female scientists in my domain here in research, and they always have like, we can't balance life because I have a kid with work. And I was like, no, you can do it. If someone else did it, you can. Look for your passion. And when you believe you can do it, subhanallah, you will find the support. But if you have hesitation, for some reason, you will not see the support from other people. But say, I will do it, and resources will be there for you.
Yeah.
And it will get better over time.
It gets better. And realizing that you may have to do it in phases as well. This is something I've learned with time. As my children are now almost university age, right? You have more time, right? You have more time, you have more freedom, you have more because you're not physically taking care of small children anymore. So again, everything comes in phases, and your life is not just this moment. Your career is not just this moment. And I think it's taken me that to add that perspective, to say, maybe not now, but maybe in 2 years, maybe not now, because it's hard to balance. It's very hard. And I think the fallacy of saying that women can have all of it all at once, all the time, is why people burn out, right? Is why our physicians decide to leave medicine, because it's just a lot to do at one point. So sometimes you pull back, you do less research to be able to do more at home. And then sometimes you're able to do more at work and less at home. So it's all about figuring out what works at a given time and understanding that it evolves over time. And these are the conversations I have all the time with my colleagues here. So it's okay. You want to take a step back and not do this right now? It's okay. You don't have to take a leadership position now. Maybe it's not the right time, and that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. But this is very important, because what happens that the young female, let's say, PhD holder, they think that I have to publish now. I have to be great now. I have to. So when they don't do that now, they think that it will not come. So I'm a failure.
I'm a failure at that point, right? Because
someone should tell them, be patient, take your time. It's okay if at certain point you look for your son till your time will come, and then things will change. So I think we have to learn how to be patient and to be supported by the right people who knows, who experienced.
And the perspective of time. I start my conversation with people by disclosing my age immediately. I say, listen, I'm 50. So this is what I've learned thus far. And this is why I can tell you when you're 30 that this is going to be okay. Okay, it's going to work out just fine, because I remember being 30. 30s were hard.
Very.
It was super hard. Very hard. You work hard. It's physically demanding with the kids. You're still junior faculty. It's hard. 40s get better. 50s, my God, so much better, right? So this is the perspective that I try to give as well. But listen, work in progress for all of us.
Pascale, thank you for your time and for sharing your journey and insights. Your contribution and perspectives are truly inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really look forward to hopefully continuing this conversation in us, which couldn't be more timely, I think, and couldn't be more important. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
To our listeners, thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will continue exploring these important topics with another remarkable guest. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and join us in the Untold Science, Women in STEM. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.